really teaching philosophy has been absolutely terrific, because my real job is to screw up your heads as much as possible. I mean, the other courses you take, so you learn stuff, then you come in here, and I ask you, okay, so what is pi?
That's good.
Right? And the job I have is to basically confuse you. Okay, pi is 3.14.
15926525897.
And of course now we've got it out to what, the trillionth place or something? Somebody found out? And yet it's totally made up. It's a fantasy. There is no real thing, pi. Right? I mean, you can have apple pie, peach pie, capital Pi, which is P in Greek, right? But pi, of course, is a relationship between one measurement of a circle and another, right? And both of those are fictional. They're mathematical concepts. Yes? Somebody argue with me. No? Yes? They're fictions, right? The reason mathematics is so secure, the basis of all knowledge, is because it's totally made up. Two plus two equals?
4.
And if you disagree with, you come home, a young man, young male, whatever, and tell your mother, 2 plus 2 equals 5. She looks at you horror-stricken, no, 2 plus 2 equals 4. But you're being a tease, and you say, no, 2 plus 2 equals 5. And mom comes up to you and goes, no, 2 plus 2 equals 4. You can't mess with math, right? It's the rules. Right? We know 2 plus 2 equals 4. There's no other alternative. Right? But if I ask you, well, what happens if two people fall in love? What happens? It's not at all like math, right?
No.
They have a child. I mean, that was 3 possibly.
Not necessarily.
Well, that's the rabbits. They have.
Yeah, but they're rabbits. That's what I
They're into math because they're really good at multiplication. Which movie is that from? Zootopia. Zootopia. Sorry, I hurt my hand when I did that. A little more gentle from now on when I do that. So, let's talk about love a little bit, because that's what today's topic is about. Love and money. The thesis. Now, it's kind of sly. I don't know if Rorty is actually trying to say his thesis is what he's describing, but he's analyzing a particular novel, and in the novel he says the thesis, the message is that you can't have love unless you have money. Money has to come first, because if you don't have enough money,
Then you can't think about everything but.
all you can think about is eating, where you're going to get your next food from.
And that causes problems in the relationship if you have one.
What couples fight over most?
Money.
Money. Seem true?
Well,
Actu-
except for the fact that there's terrible communication, lack of communication, honest communication, because they get stuck in the whole, they want to perceive to have a relationship that fits some kind of illusion that's been created, or that they've become accustomed to. And they look for somebody to reinforce that, and it's a terrible codependent type issue, and all of a sudden the world comes to an end, the everything they know comes crashing down around their ears, and they realize they've come to some moral impasse between the relationship and it's all over.
Well, I remember my wife and I's, our main arguments when we were younger were over religion.
So that's just obscene.
We got, especially because, you know, I was a philosophy major, I was studying so much about religion. She was an English major, she wasn't studying anything about religion. And so I naturally assumed my understanding about, you know, religion, et cetera, was, you know, I should rule the roost on religion. You know, what I say should go. No. No. And that's a conflict because, as I suggest to young males, if you want to live long, make lots of money, have a happy life, marry the smartest woman you can meet that will marry you, and then once you marry her, do what she says, because women are so much more practical and smarter than men. It's statistically, you know, you could just see that will work, and in fact it works. You actually will live longer, married and stay married. The divorce thing, that's going to destroy all that, right? But if you stay married, you live longer, have more wealth, you know, all that stuff. The flip side of that is that married women are not as happy as single women. Daisy is back there going, yep, that's the voice of experience. Pretty interesting. But yesterday, I saw, I was getting off of the Glen coming away from town, and I got off at Boniface to go on to Post, and I drove up the ramp there, and there was a guy standing there waiting to cross the street, I thought, because, you know, what else would you be standing there for? And as I was sitting there waiting for the light to change, I looked at him, and I realized he's holding this little wedge of cardboard that was too small, but I realized he had something written on it, and it dawned on me, he's begging at this corner. And I thought, this is really a dumb corner to beg on. I've never seen anyone begging there before. But I don't carry cash. My wife has long since learned that if I have cash, I give it to people. So she doesn't let me have cash. I have credit cards, so I can, you know, get new cards. I'll take that, you know. No, that's not a good thing. But I don't have dollars that I can like hand out to folks because they feel bad for them. You can't give them a credit card because, you know, how would that work? So she's set me up so I can only look and say sorry. You know, that's pretty interesting. But what obligation do I have to those individuals that have nothing? Assuming that he really has nothing. And he's not like just there working. Pardon?
Do you have any obligations with him?
That's on your personal philosophy, I guess, right?
Well, this is a pretty radical article, don't you think? I mean, it's the, what is our obligation to our fellow man? Because unless they have money, they can't fulfill themselves as human beings and have love, because you need money first. So should we spread the wealth? Depends on how you spread the wealth.
That, and I mean, it also depends on like the person, because most, like, I hate to stereotype, but most of the people that are on the streets begging, they're gonna take your money and go get alcohol and not try and help themselves. So
Well,
that's,
in a way, we're constructing a model of who we think they are. We can't really understand their position. We don't really know them. So it's like the bat.
yeah.
But I construct a model and I say, aha, they're alcoholics. They're just going to take the money and go make their situation worse. So I'm only hurting them by giving them
It's
money.
kind of like flipping a coin. You don't really know. You can't know. You can't really assume. But
Our creatures of habit.
It's definitely happened to me before. I've given someone $1 and they've literally gone up. I've walked up the road to Brown Jug, gone in there, and I'm like,
It's
oh.
a dollar?
Got that night? Yeah.
You
they
got
got
it.
it.
Oh, well, you got- okay.
I'm
Yeah,
sure
yeah.
it's added up.
Never mind.
Like, people have probably given this guy a few dollars. I assume maybe like, I don't know, enough to buy something.
Well, do you think Rorty is, who's the author of the Howard's End, right, is the book that he's talking about, right? Foster, right?
Forster.
Forster. I haven't read it, by the way. So if you're interested in my analysis of the book, no, I never
When
read
was
it.
this written? I might even check
The article or the book?
the article.
Well, he's dead now.
So, but was that before? Was that before the information age really got like its hooks into like everyday society, like information being the key issue, and that people are becoming lazy because they have that instant gratification, that learn now kind of process instead of the learn it
So,
and
yes.
remember it, and like and that rote kind of education where it has to be memorized. Otherwise, you're
No,
not going to be
no, Rorty is, yeah, he's,
Like 2007, right? So we're looking at a point in time where he's just looking at the values, the fact that love isn't valued, and that money has become to replace everything.
well, his mother and father were communists.
Yeah. So he's
De-
just acting out.
Deb's, the one that was arrested, I guess was their like editor or something. They wrote in a paper, a communist paper, etc. So he grew up in a home of that sort. He was one of those brilliant kids that went into college too soon, was kind of beat up a little bit as a kid because of the bullies and so on, so he resorted to reading, as a lot of those kids tend to do. So he's kind of brilliant, but yes, very liberal. I think his main principle that he says is that harming others is the worst thing that we can do.
And we can do that in our
Harming
ignorance.
others is the worst thing that we can do. On the other hand, he's a pragmatist. Brought the interest in John Dewey's philosophy back to vogue, which is really the heart of kind of an American philosophy. When he talks about truth, he thinks that truth is kind of a fraud. There is no such thing. Knowledge itself is not like an end game that, once we get to it, we know everything. Pragmatists feel that knowledge is always kind of an expanding quest. Once you learn this, now you've got 10 more things to learn. Once you learn those, you've got 10 still more, for each one. So we'll never reach the truth. We're always going to be looking and looking and looking. But in a sense, the pragmatic conception of truth, if you have to call it that, is what works. So if I try something and it works, it solves my problem, that's kind of what I'm going to assume is true until I find a better solution. Right? So it's what Dewey called a warranted assertion. But he also points out that in this article that we've come to realize that you cannot. Now, what does he mean when he talks about the South? Who's he talking about in the South? We'll never be able to help the South.
It's pretty much the high population, maybe even like the third world countries as well.
Yeah, because he talks about India. That's not really. I mean, he talks about being in India, and one of his educated Indian colleagues, so to speak, right? Not going to the same college or anything, but he's also a professor at a college in India, and he argues that the people of India will always think that you have to have 8 children because 3 of them will die, 1 of them will run to another town and that you'll never see him again. The 3 daughters or something you have to, 2 daughters you have to, and so you end up with 2 sons that have to work like dogs basically in order to pay the dowries for the daughters and make sure that the parents will have someone to take care of them when they're in old age. Right? You know, so, and of course the issue there that he doesn't say, but that we know to be the case, is that in countries that keep having lots and lots of children, poverty is a result of that. You know, if they cut back on their number of children, imagine, he talks about, what if they sprayed the villages with something that would make them infertile, sterilize them.
Then with Aeon Flux all over again.
What is it? Aeon?
Aeon Flux.
Never saw.
It's a movie from the 80s that we did recently, about a decade ago. Aeon Flux. That happened.
Inferno, the Dan Brown book that was just recently made a movie, right? Wasn't it? Did we just see it?
Yep.
There's a switch. If you throw it, half the people on Earth will die.
They changed the movie.
But if you don't, in 100 years, the human race will be extinct. I left you a path. The hardest one yet. Only you can finish it. You are humanity's final hope.
It's Dante's Inferno.
Dante defined our modern conception of hell 700 years ago. Why Dante? Why this map of hell? Someone created a plague.
Without Professor Langdon, no one can find the virus.
Oh my God.
Well, yeah, how many people can the world support?
12 billion,
Ooh,
give or take.
well, so far we've got, what, 7.5 billion? When I was born, it was about 1.5 billion. So in just one lifetime, mine, it's quadrupled.
Every 20 years, you know, a birth cycle.
Shouldn't there also be a death cycle every 20 years?
Very nice.
Famine, war, but all of that's been cut back because we have incredible medical care, which somehow suddenly became a right.
Yeah, well, it's only because the debt ceiling is imaginary. And everybody likes having that whole illusion of security. Hey, it's gonna be okay, don't worry about it. Somebody else will take care of it.
If you were a Malthusian, a follower of Reverend Thomas Malthus, you believe that this is just nature, that nature will naturally support so many people, but that if there's enough resources for everyone, that they will be able to multiply, what's it called when you...
Exponentially?
Exponentially, whereas food can only reproduce much slower. I'm sorry if my mathematical terminology is wanting.
Well, there's technology to get around that, though. That's how a large swath of the population are being...
What he predicted was way lower
in Japan.
than what we actually have now. Of course, we have figured out how to make foods, make more food by genetically modifying them.
That's
And LEDs and warehousing and mechanical kind of rotating machines that kind of do a cycle.
And fertilizer?
Yeah. Mhm.
So that's something that's really scary to me is, I don't know if I've mentioned, but I know I'm not the same kind of human being my parents were. Because they were made from carbon that was solar based, so they ate foods that grew because the sun gave them their carbon. The foods I eat receive their carbon from petroleum products, fertilizers. And so I'm carbon 3 and they are carbon 4. We're literally different individuals. That's kind of scary. I learned that thanks to the
That really
scariest
affects-
book I ever read.
That really affects the amount of the carbon isotope we use.
It's the scariest book I ever read. Because this is real. Turns out that all my foods are non-foods. They didn't used to be foods. We've invented them. By the way, this is you as well. So everything you're eating turns you into what he calls a walking corn chip. And the corn is
The corn is terrible. I mean,
The
that the
corn
whole
is-
subsidy
is-
is garbage.
a GMA kind of corn. Even if you eat beef, the beef were corn fed. So, right? So, and the trouble is, even if you're eating organic foods, those organic foods are raised by much the same companies that raise the other foods in fields right next door where they're spraying them, and the sprays do go over to the other fields. So, what we're eating, we're laboratory experiments.
Yep.
Because we're all eating foods that are much more powerful. I mean, you grow them, although of course it's destroying the water content under California, right? So we're going to run out of all of that stuff soon.
Large-scale industrial operations, while they produce more, are a lot less efficient, and the diversity of the products that they produce are actually causing a problem because they have it's an issue with genetic diversity.
But as a result of this, plus modern transportation, we can feed people that are starving to death in Sudan.
Anywhere.
In fact, we're growing populations in the middle of a desert where they have no means of self-support. Because we've started delivering food there, and so everybody's accumulated there in new cities that are based on the deliveries of the free food from the West. In fact, there's a whole bureaucracy there that as soon as the foods arrive, the ones with power in the village basically steal it and then sell it to all the others, so they make money off of it.
It's unsustainable.
It's unsustainable. But the populations are growing. There's more people that, their main job there is raising children. So liberals are at fault.
Oh, the beating heart kind?
Because we feel that the worst thing we could do is harm other people. And harming other people can be done not only by doing something to them, but not doing something to them. So we have obligations to help feed them, even though they're living in a place that's unsustainable. If we stop, it's terrible.
Well, if we stop, then they would probably move away. And hopefully, well,
Go to Europe?
yeah.
Wow.
No, yeah, I know. Everyone seems to think it's a problem,
Oh,
no
no.
matter where they go.
Of course, we all do. So find out how easy it is to train at home for a better career. Just get a pencil and paper right now and write down his toll-free
That's
number.
not the one I
There's
wanted.
absolutely no international correspondence schools. More than 10 million men and women have trained for job promotions and new careers without setting foot inside a classroom. And now at home in your spare time, you can get your career diploma or even your degree. Choose from any one of these courses. High school, TV, UCR.
That's not, when did she do that? Here.
That was very nice.
For about 70 cents, you can buy a can of soda, regular or diet.
No, honestly, though.
In Ethiopia, for just 70 cents a day, you can feed a child like Jamal nourishing meals. For about 70 cents, you can also buy a cup of coffee. In Guatemala, for 70 cents a day, you can help a child like Vilma get the clothes she needs to attend school. For about 70 cents, you can buy a pack of gum, plain or sugarless. In Central America,
You
for
seen
70
commercials
cents
like
a
this?
day, you can help a child like Maria, who received an operation to restore her sight. Since 1938, Christian Children's Fund has helped children of many faiths.
You'll also receive Child World magazine, which explains why your help is needed so urgently. Sponsorship is just $21 a month. That breaks down to 70 cents a day. So why don't you call now? There's truly no obligation, and
Yeah, no.
we'll send you all the information you need so you can make your decision.
Please call now. With a little of your spare change, you can start to change the life of a child forever.
Or we could
KFC loves
just buy
games.
all
So,
the-
I can go there and get 70 cents.
That's a big-
Like, what the hell?
That's a burn on Chick-fil-A.
I don't know how
That's beautiful.
Facebook or YouTube, this is
YouTube.
YouTube. I don't know how YouTube decides what commercials to show me. They wouldn't be the same on your, if you looked at the same video, would you see the same?
I think the first 5 are the same, but then the
Yeah.
rest of them are based on the other things you've watched as well.
Yeah.
I'm glad there's no sex thing there. Goodness. That would be embarrassing. Which, by the way, if you think about that word, embarrassing, it's pretty blatant, isn't it?
Ha ha ha.
Uh-huh. So, and by the way, these commercials are effective. They, over the years, have encouraged mostly middle class or lower to spend lots of their money donating to charities, some of which clearly have CEOs that make millions of dollars. So, you know, you can go look at the statistics to see how much of the money that's donated actually makes it to the supposed object of the donations, right? So they're big business. Yeah.
Isn't it like 30 cents of your dollar actually like goes
Or less.
It depends. I think they do rate them so that you can see which ones get more of it there.
Responsibility to look.
But here's the question though. I mean,
Where can we get a can of soda for 70 cents?
Yeah,
that was obviously old.
Coffee.
Honestly,
Or a
the
cup of coffee for 70 cents.
Or ice cream.
No,
You
you
can't
need
do
a better
anything for
doctor,
70 cents.
dude.
But thanks to the West using its funding to send food and other support to
Marketing and leveraging guilt.
the world's population has quadrupled just in my lifetime, and at the same time we have you ever heard of global warming?
Never.
What's the main reason, hypothetically, that we have global warming if you believe that it's man-made?
Well, it's cyclical. I mean, it is cyclical for, you know.
Well, that's
the world, but that
assuming
belongs to
assuming you believe the theory that it is man-made.
Right, but
Carbon emissions.
it is
Carbon
cold,
emissions.
burning coal, yeah.
By the way, living here in Alaska is the worst thing you could do. Because what Americans traditionally, on average, use 10 times the carbon of the people in the rest of the world.
Except for China.
Actually,
China was number one.
Because of all the
I thought they-
manufacturing.
Yeah, I don't know if that's per person though. I think it's more in the country as a whole.
Yeah, that's
It's
industrial
industrial.
level.
They burn
But they've been
all
going
the
down
So it's not like
because of.
Yeah,
their-
but we're the ones that buy all their stuff.
Right. So
Regardless.
we're
Yeah,
probably
so
the
we're
causation.
fueling
So we've farmed out the carbon production of the industrialization part, but we're the ones that receive all of the crappy furniture. Except for Ottoman. Ottomans come from Turkey for some reason. That was a joke. Thanks for laughing.
Ha. Whew, that was a good one.
And the reason Alaska is worse is because out of all of the people that live in the U.S., the people that have the highest carbon footprint are the people that live in Alaska. Because we have to fly so much stuff up or ship it. Plus we're using heat
But we do
more
have
of the
the
year.
best air.
We have the best.
Anchorage has horrible air quality.
Well, I mean, in Alaska, in general, compared to like other places.
We have the best.
Like air
No,
quality?
I'm just saying, like
air quality. Air
yeah.
quality.
Like the oxygen. even though
But,
it's
I mean,
worse.
part of that is because there's only 650,000 of us in Alaska, which, as far as I
385
understand,
of it's in Anchorage.
I mean, we don't even have a city.
Well, municipal area.
I think in order to have an official city, you have to have 1 million people living in the city. And our
Right.
largest city is Anchorage with about 300 something.
385 municipal area, Anchorage, 385,000. So like with the traveling population, you're looking at about 300 on average in Anchorage. 280 to 300.
And
that's
that's
documented.
why we can't
And that's
afford to
before
do a lot of things on our own, and because there's not enough of us here to make it profitable for companies. Sam's Club is
Except
closed.
for energy. Energy's big business. Energy.
But we're shipping it. We're not
Me
making
too.
the energy to
Obviously,
keep
it's
here
not
to use here. We're shipping all of it.
Yeah, I mean,
Maybe one of
we're
those
paying Canadian
areas.
for
In fact, we ship it to the lower 48 where they're refining it and then shipping it back because it's cheaper than refining it here.
Yeah, I never understood that.
It's because all the infrastructure is already built down south. And that's where most of the customers are gonna be. Why build infrastructure up here for 300 or whatever, you know, like, it doesn't make any sense.
Especially when you have China that's sitting there buying out the pipelines out of sewer.
So I feel guilty, not only because I was raised Roman Catholic and I was raised to feel guilty right from the beginning, which is okay. I'm happy with, I would feel guilty if I weren't feeling guilty about things, because I like being guilty.
That's how you know you are.
Yeah, that's the way. But I feel guilty because, on the other hand, I respect Rority's argument that harming other people is the worst thing you can do, and I believe that the statistics are roughly correct, that I'm living here in Alaska and harming the environment more than I could possibly do living in, like, New York City, where I would be perhaps making the least carbon imprint, because there's so many people there. Most people don't have cars, most people just take public transportation. They're all living in buildings, vertical existences, etc.
Live in the middle of nowhere and do nothing.
Well, and that's the leverage you have there is, the fact that getting traction using alternative energy up here is kind of a big deal. Even though that we have that $1 billion offer from TrueGas to buy an LNP to kind of consolidate the energy resources, because that diversification is actually harming our utility market right now, because there's not one unified way for us to develop sustainable, long-term renewable energy systems, because nobody wants to take the jump to do it without some guarantee that it's going to be, a successful and profitable long-term project.
I'm getting the impression that Adam is enthusiastic about this stuff.
Agreed.
Anybody else?
I mean,
You find this a dilemma? Are you going to have a long life?
No.
Or is the world going to be destroyed for human beings within your lifetime because of the way we're living?
The world's gonna end in 2012
Yeah.
anyways, so.
2012.
Oh, man,
I
that was-
remember that, yes.
Man.
That was horrible the way it ended.
I thought it ended in 2000.
Don't you?
Jesus will be back before then. In a field in New York. Or is it Pennsylvania? I forget which field it was.
Which Jesus?
Which Jesus?
Right.
And besides, the minute he arrives, they're going to arrest him because he's an illegal alien without a green card.
From the Middle East, no less.
Dear God.
I missed it.
Yeah, you would probably. would've
Jesus
enjoyed
would
it
be
too.
arrested because he's an illegal alien.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And someone chimed in,
There's
probably
a
one
12
of the
step or
police.
/ 12-year program.
Well, how would you even express it to him? No one today speaks Hebrew or Aramaic or Greek.
Does
So
anybody- wait a
those are
minute.
the three languages he probably would have understood.
Does anybody know how to actually speak those three languages? Aramaic or he?
Yes, but they don't live here.
Aramaic is very
I didn't know if it was still
far
spoken.
Oh, yeah. The Armenians speak Aramaic, a version of it, I'm sure.
It's still based on like the runic language of Hebrew or?
You can still speak Hebrew as well, but.
Yeah, you have to in Israel. That's like the official language. Israel. So this is, of course, meant to annoy the heck out of you, because this is a dilemma. We've, on the one hand, got a powerful force in the United States for love and care of our fellow man. On the other hand, if we look at the physics of this, it seems like that very love and affection since the 40s, the 50s, has been the reason why we have global warming, because we have so many people, because we've been loving them so much. In a way, it seems like we, as the population of people in the universe, the world,
It works,
as far as we know. The answer is 42. What's the question? I never found out what the question was. But didn't you give me the answer?
Yeah,
42?
42 miles every second.
42 miles every second.
For when you're dealing with longitude, latitude, GPS coordinates.
Sorry, I'm mentally ill, remember.
Part of your
Squirrel.
job description.
Squirrel. It's a reference to a movie.
I go and Invader Zim.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
However, oh shoot, I was really on a roll here too.
Well,
So I can't remember where the roll was going, but you know the.
Just because you got
yeah,
distracted by the squirrel.
The squirrel did it. Yeah.
All the people in the universe.
It was. I feel so torn. On the one hand, I love loving people, and I think we should love them. I've been persuaded by the liberal side of me that loving human beings is like, wow, that's
Well, Roman
that's
Catholic.
important. On the other hand, I feel like we have been dumber than a yogurt culture in a cup of cream. Because what we've done, literally, is we've eaten up all the protein and polluted it with our own feces, fecal matter. And as a result, we've toxified the environment to the point where we are now going to die. And somebody's going to eat it because it'll be delicious.
Man, I'm excited to eat my yogurt tonight.
I didn't pretend that's not you. It's like I never asked how do they make hot dogs, so to do with yogurt.
So I feel dumb for loving people. That's what I was taught to do. And yet, look at, and did you see during Trump's speech, the split? Almost everything he said, everybody on the one side, all standing up and applauding, along with him, which was odd, because he was the first president that's ever applauded his own State of the Union address. Yes?
First
way
president
there.
that hasn't been a politician.
But on the other side, everybody sat there. I mean, how do you, can I find Pelosi's
The introduction.
expression?
This is the new one. This is like quite possibly the longest State of the Union ever.
I'm sure Pelosi had a.
I don't know.
Power and a little over an hour.
So, yeah. Not the biggest fan of OC.
There's so many videos just on it.
It's really uncomfortable.
She looks like she's eating something.
The camera kept going to it, and he was doing it too, and the two of them were.
I just, you know.
Well, have you seen The Pen Thief?
The what?
The Pen Thief.
The pen thief?
Yeah, there's like a senator who stole a pen, and he was like just doing elaborate things with the pen to steal it.
You gotta have fun somehow.
He was like twirling around over here.
Was this a fun topic? Are you